like to tell you a little bit about what led to this fact, but the fact is that in 1998, my family and I moved to Riga, and we've lived there ever since, well, up until this past January. So soon after I arrived there, I met the radio choir, and I've worked with them several times since then, which is happily why I'm here to speak with you this evening.
And how good are they?
Well, now, I don't think, you did say yourself in the first half that they're recognized as amongst the best chamber choirs in the world, and I don't think that's an overstatement by any means.
How large a choir are they?
They are a chamber choir, which technically and usually means 24 voices.
Mm-hmm. And is this a full-time job for them?
It is a full-time professional choir, one of only two, to my knowledge, in Latvia, and in any country, quite a rarity. It's a publicly supported institution. The singers, for all of the members of the choir, their work with the radio choir is their main job.
Mm-hmm. Do they interact with the other choirs in the region, with the Estonians, for example, with the Swedes, the Danish choirs?
They're part of a very interesting network known by, and I can't tell you exactly what the acronym means, but the organization is called TENSO, T-E-N-S-O, and it's a network of European professional chamber choirs, many, if not all of whom, also happen to have a specialty in contemporary or modern repertoire. But in that context, they collaborate with the Rias Kammerchor of Berlin, the Swedish and the Danish radio choirs, and the Netherlands radio choirs, and several others. The organization has 13 members, as far as I know. Within and whether the Estonians are members, I think in fact they also are. In Latvia, they collaborate quite often with other choral groups, and there are some common members amongst choirs.
Do they have solo careers as well? Do they do some solo singing in addition to singing in the choirs?
For the most part, the choristers are choral specialists, where their vocal strengths are directed toward sectional and ensemble singing. Within a choral context, there are certain members of the group, all of them really, because the group is that strong. I've written and I've pointed out, and I've used in my compositions the fact that all of the choir's members are viable soloists, every single one of them. But their solo work generally takes place in a choral context. Mm-hmm. They're not operatic soloists. Right. They're not leader recitalists, or anything like that.
And unlike Pavarotti, who had to have the music taught to him painstakingly because he didn't read music very well, I suspect most of these read rather well.
In this case, I think the radio choir is, well, among the best, most professional music groups in Latvia, but on the other hand, they're not atypical in that all of their members are very well trained and benefit from a strong tradition of musical education that survives to this day in Latvia.
And that tradition goes back how far?
To the end of the 19th century. I think the establishment of the academy, where I've taught for the last 3 years, was in the first years of the 20th century, around the same time that Rachmaninoff's Vespers would have been composed. I know that Alexander Glazunov was a patron of the founding of the academy. What was the state of academic musical education before the founding of the Jāzeps Vitols Latvian Music Academy? I couldn't say, but it goes back at least that far.
Have you rehearsed and worked with the choir?
In the context of 3 separate projects. The first one, as I say, was shortly after I arrived in Latvia. I had a piece composed for the Vancouver Chamber Choir, commissioned by the Vancouver Chamber Choir, half complete at the point when it came time for us to go to Latvia. When I arrived there, I was finishing the piece. When it was complete, I sent it to the Vancouver Chamber Choir. But soon after that, I realized I was in, the choir center of the world. So I took my newly composed piece and showed it to one of the composers, one of the conductors of the Latvian Radio Choir, Kaspars Putniņš, whom we'll hear in performance next week. And he liked the look of my score and duly programmed the piece for, the next season. And that was effectively my entree into the Latvian classical music scene, was with that piece. Because, the concert was a great success. People loved the choir in any case. I loved the choir. I loved the rendition they gave of my piece. And we began speaking right away on the basis of that experience about another project. What next would I like to, what would I like to write specifically for the Latvian Radio Choir? And the idea arose to write something a bit bigger, a bit more ambitious. They were interested in collaboration, and collaboration for me, and as it turns out, for the Latvian Radio Choir, is a key word. You asked how often they collaborate with other choirs. They collaborate with other choirs. They collaborate with artists of other disciplines. They collaborate very well and very generously and very effectively with composers. So in this case, they had wanted to work with a saxophone quartet, the Riga Saxophone Quartet, who'd also become friends of mine. You mentioned that I'm a saxophone player. I've also written very much music for my instrument, the saxophone. So in the next project called Fruits of the Earth, we put the choir together with a saxophone quartet, an unusual combination. Perhaps, I will have you listen to a little excerpt of that piece. A further element of collaboration was with the author, the libretto, and the stage director, my partner, Banyuta Rubes. I mentioned the piece is a staged piece, so and the choir has been interested, continues to be interested in theatricalized choir music. This was the first major outing for them in that genre, but since then they've made several pieces, collaborating with, among others, Hotel Pro Forma, which is a very well-known Danish contemporary theater company. Maybe can we listen to a short excerpt?
Absolutely.